$11,000 a year. Whew. And I remember thinking, that's more than my dad made at his greatest earnings. $11,000 a year. We didn't live in a very big house. We lived in a house about 1,100 square feet for the 5 of us. Had 3 bedrooms. So 2 of us kids always had to share rooms. For a while it was me and my sister, and my younger brother had a nursery, and then it was me and my brother as we got a little bit older, and my sister had the princess room. She still thinks she's the princess. None of the rooms were all that big, but it was always comfortable. And I remember thinking, growing up, this is the greatest place on earth. We had a big backyard. We had a great big tree. We always played outside. We were always climbing and running and riding bikes. I hear we've got somebody learning to ride a bike. And it was my dad who did a lot of that. And when the house seemed to be getting a little small, or maybe we were just getting a little bit bigger, he decided that we needed another room. So he added another bedroom and a bathroom himself. He did the work. He and my uncle and some of his friends all came over and they did all of the work. And I remember there was a hallway that used to go toward the back of the house, toward the bathroom, and he converted that into his study. And he built in a desk there, and the desk was huge. Oh, it had to be about this big. That was before computers and monitors and everything else that needed all the space. But I remember it was always late at night. If I would get up in the middle of the night, there he'd be reading and studying and writing because he was taking correspondence courses so he could be that supervisor. And I don't know that it was so much that he wanted to be that, but he thought he needed to be that for our family. He provided for our need. Did I think that he provided for our need? You bet. You bet. Did we have a lot of things? Well, it wasn't until much later on that I knew that we weren't all that wealthy. I always thought we were. I had a great bicycle. I had a tree to climb. I had a backyard. I had a lot of friends. I had a mom and dad who loved me dearly. It wasn't until later that I found out that we didn't have a whole lot of money, so we were actually kind of hovering just above the poverty level. But it was all good. My dad actually started out driving a truck for the power company. And he got that job because he drove tanks during Korean War. And then he was so good at it that they moved him back to the base in Texas so that he could train others to drive tanks. The things I remember about him are obviously kind of sparse. But some things really stand out. We took great vacations. We either went out to my grandparents' cottage that they had on a lake just outside of Kalamazoo. So we traveled the whole 10 miles to get there. And then we'd spend a week at the cottage by ourselves, which meant that all of my other 11 cousins and their families kind of stayed away during the week, which meant Monday to Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they were all there still. Or we had this pop-up camper that we would take camping, and we would go all over the place with this thing. We would stay in some of the finest campgrounds. I remember one time going through the mountains of Pennsylvania, and now this camper is one that my dad had made with my uncle, and we shared it with them. And going through the mountains of Pennsylvania, the tongue on this thing broke, and this thing broke loose coming downhill. Now, there was a divided median, and it went down and then over into the other set of lanes. And my dad, feeling a great sense of responsibility for his trailer, because this, after all, was his, decided that it was a better thing not to let it go through that median and not into oncoming traffic. So he took our station wagon, our brand new station wagon, and ran into this thing over and over again until it stopped. How he did that with 3 kids screaming in the back and my mother white-knuckled against the dashboard is beyond me. But he did. So what about your dad? Did he provide for you? One thing's for sure, that our Heavenly Father provides for every one of us. Whether we've had good dads or bad. And one of the things that I learned in seminary when I was learning to preach is be careful on these dad illustrations. Some people didn't have good dads. Some people had alcoholic dads. Some had dads that were absent. Some had dads that were far less than what we hope for. And it's like, yeah, but we all have one who does an excellent job. And he's our example in all things. And you notice that Paul, the apostle, says, be imitators of me. Now, he doesn't say imitate him in everything. He says, imitate me in as much as I imitate Christ. Because you know what? He's imitating his dad. And if you do that, you've got it right. So thanks for the provisions. But thanks for instructions as well. Ephesians 6, verse 4 says, fathers, do not exasperate your children, but instead train them in the ways of the Lord. Now sometimes as dads, we like to hold on to that last part, that last phrase. Train them in the ways of the Lord. Raise up your children in the way they should go. And we take that almost as license to do as we want. That isn't what it says. It says, do not exasperate your children. In other words, don't beat them down. Don't diminish them. Don't tear away at their fragile egos, because like little plants coming out of the earth, they need to be watered, they need to be nurtured, they need to be cared for, and we need to raise them up so that they can be strong and healthy. That's faithful instruction. Another version says, parents, don't be hard on your children. Raise them properly. Teach them and instruct them about the Lord. And even another version says, don't keep scolding them. Don't keep nagging your children. That's only going to make them angry and resentful. Rather, bring them up with a loving discipline that the Lord himself approves. Dads instruct us on a lot of things, don't they? Mine was fond of saying, now don't be afraid of asking questions in school. That's the only way that you're going to learn. The wedding here yesterday, the maid of honor, when I got to the end of the instructions at the rehearsal, I says, now, are there any questions? Do you know how you're getting in? Do you know how you're coming out? Do you know where you're going to stand? Are there any questions? Right away, her hand's up. She got a question. Okay, then any more? She got another one. Okay, now there are any more. And she had another one. I think she had 4 questions at the end. Now, she was the only one that had questions. And she said, my dad always told me, if you're not sure, ask questions. That's the only way you're going to learn. I'm going, oh, I like you. That's how we learn, isn't it? And dads, that's part of our responsibility, is to instruct our children in the way that they should go. The other thing my dad was fond of saying is, I don't care what everybody else is doing, doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it. Kind of went right along with, if everybody was jumping off a bridge, would you follow them? Oh, you've heard that one? Yeah, that's in the dad's handbook. We all get that one. But it says, give instruction to our children about school, about work, about relationships, about dating, about driving the car, everything. And faithful instruction is important, but always be careful how you deliver it. One of the things my dad did was he was my Little League coach. Now, it's difficult for kids to be a pastor's kid, because when you look out and you see them not paying attention, they get a lecture on the way home from church. Okay, other kids don't get that, but pastor's kids do. Well, if you live with your Little League coach, you also get instruction. Okay, I was at one point or another the pitcher on our team. I played first base. I was one of the lead hitters, and I played right field. Why? Because my dad thought I should be well-rounded and I should play all those positions. Didn't mean I was necessarily good at them, but I played all